afternoon, my friends. Happy Friday and welcome to November. I hope you're all doing well. I know it's been a little long between vlogs and I do apologize for that. It's just the usual excuse of life being busy. But in saying that, it is come to that time of the year where everything's just like beginning to wind down. I really need to move out of this space. There are so many noisy things going past and it keeps stopping me from talking. There's tractors, there's trains. I'm parked under a bridge, so everything's just so much more magnified. But anyway, what was I saying? Very happily, it has come to that point of the year where everything is slowly just dialing down a bit. I've pretty much finished all of my studies. I still have a few little assessment bits to finish, so that's pretty much finished for the year. I've just finished doing a small little like seasonal job doing HSC exam supervision at my local high school. So I've just finished the last exam today, just now. So now I have a little bit more free time as well to do things. And I'm just finding that because a lot of these things are winding down and coming to the end, there's space in my brain to be like creative and vlog again, really. So that's what we're doing today. And I'm very, very excited to get back into it. First off, before I go home, I need to get petrol. Petrol is so expensive here at the moment and just has to be the way. The day that you really need it, it's at the like high point of the cycle where it's really expensive. I just gotta go and spend a small fortune on putting petrol in my car so I can go places. And then this afternoon I planned to finish quilting my Nightingale quilt, which I started forever ago, and then started quilting back in September and then just did nothing about it because, you know, things. And now just in the last couple of days, the spark and the excitement about getting that finished is just sort of like, it's all bubbling inside. So hopefully we should get that finished today. But now as another noisy train goes by, I am going to go. Oh, I chose like the worst place to open my vlog, out in the wild where it's noisy and busy and just stressful. So yes, I'll see you soon. Okay, my friends, welcome back to the sewing room. I am obviously home now. I've had a little bit of a break, had lunch, chilled out a little bit, but now it is the time of the afternoon. It's almost 3 o'clock to get some quilting done. There's nothing really much to update you on what's going on here. I mean, nothing has changed. I still got my bare pole block quilt up on the wall. Haven't touched it. Everything's still an absolute mess. I need to do a really big tidy slash purge of this room in the next couple of weeks in the lead up for Vlogmas. I just feel like I need to have a nice clean sort of organized space to feel ready for Vlogmas. What is happening in the sewing room today is I will definitely get finished quilting my Nightingale quilt today. I actually have been doing just some sneaky quiet quilting over the last couple of days and I've just felt inspired to sit down and just reconnect with my darling sewing machine and just getting this quilt finished. So I'm going to do what I usually do, and that's just find some good music on Spotify. Yesterday I started listening to some Christmas music. I'm so excited for Christmas this year. I don't know what it is. Just, I don't know, just in the spirit this year. Today I think I might put on my Disney playlist because I'm wearing my Mickey and Minnie shirt. And usually that sort of gives me the pep and the pop to keep going with my sewing. Oh, that rhymed. I'm a poet and I don't even know it. Look at that. Okay, anyway. Enough ramble. More sewing. Gloves on, machine on. Let's get stitching. the quilting is coming along very well. I've only got 4 more lines to do, so I've only got this sort of like 1 block area to go. So I thought before I finish quilting, I would just quickly just talk you through my setup for quilting, because sometimes I have questions about how I quilt. You guys ask me for tips and tricks, and yeah, just how I do it really, especially when I'm doing such a big quilt. This thing is like mammoth. So I'm just gonna just chat through just the different little things that I do to help me to get the quilt through the machine without making me frustrated, to sort of minimize the struggle, and yeah, just to make the experience a lot more easier and seamless and smoother and fun. So firstly, I use quilting gloves with a grip on the back side of the glove. These ones are by Fons and Porter. Aisha actually gave these to me. I think she got them from Amazon, but they are wonderful. They're cotton, so they're nice and soft and really easy to use, and they grip so well, and I just love them. Really, really great. Recommend, and I'm so glad she gave me a pair. I find using quilting gloves helps to keep me in control of being able to grip the quilt and feed it through the machine, and I honestly I don't know how I quilted without these. They're just fantastic. Second of all, to control the quilt on my left hand side, I actually pull up my computer chair. I don't know whether you can see it where I've got the camera, but I've got my computer chair just here, and I put it there so I can have that as sort of like my little prop to hold the quilt, so I'm not sort of like fighting it, because you know, I don't have 8 arms, I'm not an octopus. All of my concentration and effort is going into feeding the machine through, and I don't need to be like struggling with it, like sliding down onto the floor. So I find that putting a chair here, I used to put my ironing board here when I was in a different setup, but anything that's sort of like at hip height, that will take the slack of the quilt, or the rest of the quilt that's obviously not going through the machine. It's just the best, and I definitely recommend that if you have the space for it. I mean, you can even put like a little like coffee table here, or like one of those foldable tables, whatever works. Other thing, I always make sure that everything in and behind my machine is free, so there's free space for the quilt to flow through, and it's not going to bump up into anything. When I'm filming, I have my camera as far back as possible against all the stuff against the wall, or I'm using the big tripod that sort of hangs over, but even then the legs of the tripod will get in the way, and sometimes you can actually see the camera moving. But yeah, if you can clear space behind the machine and to the side, then yeah, you'll feel a lot more freer, and the quilt will have somewhere to go, so it's not all sort of like bunching up around your machine. What else do I find works? Handy tools to have, just a little pair of scissors, just in case you have any stray threads that need to be pulled away. I always make sure I've got thread for bobbin, phone, and AirPods for me to listen to music. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just really making sure that I've tailored the space for me, and I definitely have the support to the left to carry such a big burden of this quilt. So, where am I up to? Where was I up to? Another thing I also like to do is make sure that a lot of the quilt that needs to be quilted is in my lap, so I can easily feed it through. Sometimes I forget, and I'm halfway through quilting the first bit, I'm like, oh, I've got to tug it all back over onto my lap. But yeah, just making sure the quilt is feeding through evenly in front of you, and you've got this support to your left to hold the quilt so it's not pulling from the sewing machine, I find very, very good. Hopefully you found that little insight to my quilting setup interesting, helpful, not helpful, I don't know. But yeah, that's just what I like to do. And then as I'm just feeding the quilt through, I just sort of gently, patiently readjust and then keep going. I also have a habit of always smoothing the top of the quilt down that way, so outwards, so there's no wrinkles going back into the quilt. It's just a great way to make sure that it quilts nice and flat, and you'll have a nice lovely surface when you're finished. So I'm going to do these last couple of lines, and then the quilting is finished. Yes. and then we can start thinking about binding. But I don't think I'll do binding today. I think binding is for Saturday afternoon. I have some TAFE assessments to finish in the morning. I have to do it because they're due the next day. Nothing like procrastinating over assignments, but I'll concentrate on finishing the binding for this quilt tomorrow afternoon, and I will bring you along for the journey. I also got to think of a quilt label. I don't think I've actually made one for this quilt. Oh, maybe I have. No, I think I have. I think it's down there somewhere, in and amongst all the other mess down in the corner. We all have a messy corner in our sewing room, don't we? Please say yes. I don't want to feel loneliness. Anyway, onwards, let's quilt. Oh, I need to put some music back on. Well, good afternoon, my friends. Happy Saturday. It's the something of November. I think it's the 4th. Yeah, it's the 4th of November, and I hope you're doing well. Welcome to a nice cozy Saturday afternoon. It is currently raining outside. Birds are chirping though, they're loving it. And I have the puppy dog here at my feet because someone doesn't like it when it rains, doesn't like thunder, doesn't like anything to do with wet weather. So he's my sewing buddy today. He is unfortunately in the way because I'm about to do the binding on my Nightingale quilt. I spent a little bit this morning getting the binding done. I'm binding it with the sort of black and white pebble print that's in the middle of the blocks. I think that will sort of like really frame it off really nicely. So it's all ready to go, and I think I'm going to machine bind it, like finish it by the machine. I've kind of recently become a convert to finishing binding off with the machine. Don't get me wrong, I still love finishing binding by hand, but the convenience of finishing it with the machine is really good. It's just so quick, and I can finish the quilt so quickly, and it's a really nice finish. I think if I was making this quilt for someone, or if I in the future make a quilt for someone, I will finish it off by hand. I quite like having that last little detail finished with my hands, but this time we're just gonna let the machine do all the work. So we should definitely get that finished today, within the next half hour, however long it takes me. And if I'm feeling up to it, we will also put the label on today. As always, I have my trusty hexie flower label. It's kind of like my signature to finish my quilts off with a hexie flower, and this has been made ages ago with some of the leftover fabrics that are in the quilt, so it should tie it all nicely together. And usually the quilt label I will attach and finish by hand, so that should be a nice thing to do in front of the TV tonight. So I'm gonna have to move the dog, shuffle him along a little bit. He's not gonna like it, and we'll sit down at the machine and get chugging along. Okay friends, we are halfway through getting the binding on this quilt. I'll tell you what, this quilt is big. I kind of forget just like how big it actually is, and that I haven't done a quilt this big in a very long time. It's just so massive. It just took forever to sew the binding to the back, and now I'm about to spend another half hour, it seems, sewing the binding to the front. But weather's bad, there is good. Once it's all sewn, it's pretty much finished except for the label. So what I've done is I've sewn the binding, oh, don't get hot. Yeah, what I've done is sewn the binding to the back of the quilt, folded it over to the front, and then popped my little clips in to keep it in place as I sew along. And I tell you what, there's so many little clips on this quilt, it's pretty much taken the whole jar. I'm also doing a change of colour for the top thread for the binding. So on the top of the binding at the front of the quilt, we're going to have this really cool bright pink, because the pink that I was using, which replaced the pink that I was using before that, has run out. We're replacing it with this bright pink, which goes well with the pink that's on the quilt, I think. Is it this one that I matched it with? Or was it... There's a couple of different pinks on this. Anyway, I thought this one worked well, just to have a nice lovely little pop of pink. You're not really going to notice it, I don't think, because it's going to blend into the little black pebbles, but you know, if you look hard you'll see a nice lovely little pop of colour, and this quilt is just all about colour. Another thing that I've been struggling with this quilt, and it's just inevitable because we have a dog that lives pretty much in the house. This quilt is just covered in dog hair. There's Charlie all over this, so I'm trying not to stress about it too much. I just like to think that Charlie will live forever within this quilt, you know, because it's just covered in dog hair. So good thing I'm not making this for anyone except for myself, because otherwise I'd be having a fit. I'd be like, oh, there's dog hair everywhere. But because I don't really care, because I love my dog so much, it's fine. But it is very annoying that I have to keep like picking it off all the time. But you know, it's the little first world problems, isn't it? So let's thread this machine and get this binding all finished. Playlist choice for today is all the songs that I used to listen to as a teenager. I made my own little playlist on Spotify of all of the songs that I used to listen to as a teenager. It's called Teenage Mixtape. This is the little thumbnail I made for it. This sums me up as a teenager. Just all of the wonderful things that made me, and look, there I am as a little teen. Oh, little baby face. So I've got over 17 hours of music on here. Definitely not going to get through it all today, but I'm very much enjoying it. Nothing like a bit of nostalgia when you're quilting, in my opinion. Yes, a little bit of Silverchair to get us started. Good morning, my friends. Happy Monday. It's the 6th of November today, I think. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. So today, after having such a successful quilting finish over the weekend, I am going to be finishing my Nightingale quilt today by, oh, let me just get it, popping the label on. I was going to do this yesterday, but I had an assessment to finish that I procrastinated throughout the weekend over, but I finally sat down yesterday and finished it because it was due yesterday. You know, funny how that works. So yeah, yesterday was just focused on getting that done, so I knew that I would have the day off today, and so I thought we'll do the label today and wrap this vlog up and edit it and hopefully get it out today, if not tomorrow. But let's focus on getting this done. All I need to do today is pop the information in the middle, and when I do that, I have the little text here. I know I've showed this before, but I know that there'll be possibly people watching that haven't seen me do a label before. To write on the actual fabric, I use this marker, either this one or a Sharpie, usually this one. So two options that I use to write information onto a label. This one here is by Pentel. It's a marker for textiles. Come on, show the people. There we go. So Pentel marker for textile, and it's got a really nice fine point. That's the point on that one. The other one that I use is a Sharpie pen. I actually do also have a laundry marker one, but it has a really thick tip, like a usual Sharpie tip does. But this one is a dual tip. So on this side, it has a super thin tip. So this one's more like a traditional felt tip pen, and I find that because that's so fine, it's really easy to write with. So it really depends on how much information I'm going to be putting in the center bit to which one I'm going to use. So if I'm going to just do really minimal kind of information like the date and who made it, then I'll possibly use this one. But I think because I've got the date, the name of the quilt, and who made it, which is me, I'll possibly use the real finer point on my sharper marquee. On my sharper marquee, I'll possibly end up using the finer point on my Sharpie marker. First I'm going to give this a press because there is a crease line in the middle there, you can see, and I just want that nice and flat. And yeah, then we'll get marking and stitching it onto the quilt. Happy days! Okay, my friends, the label is all finished and it looks really good. I'm very happy with it. I did something a little bit different this time when it came to actually stitching the label onto the quilt. I'll show you. So this time I actually chose to do a really simple whip stitch or invisible stitch, whatever you want to call it. So I just took some stitches into the quilt backing and then into the actual label, carried on so it's kind of invisible. This is where I first started, so it looks a little bit odd. Continued all the way around doing this sort of slip stitchy type stitch. So, and I decided to do that against doing like the buttonhole sort of stitch that I usually do with embroidery thread. I just wanted to do something that wasn't sort of like thick and clunky along these edges. I just wanted to keep it nice and simple and clean, really, and I think it looks good. I'm really happy with it. And if I'm honest, it was actually a lot quicker doing it that way than actually doing the stitch that I would have usually done, so that was a bit of a bonus. I got it done a lot quicker than what I thought. Now I do actually want to take it outside and give you like one of those completed shots that I usually do, but over the weekend it's been, oh, there's a cat up there. Interesting. Sorry, I just got distracted. Over the weekend, it's been just absolutely chucking it down with rain. And so I think our backyard is quite wet and muddy still. And I know that this quilt will drag onto the grass. I don't really want to take it out where it's wet and muddy. And I don't really have anywhere else to really hang it. It's too big to hang in that corner there. It might maybe have to be like a kitchen hanging on our hutch kind of deal, I think. I think I can manage that. So I've got to find some hangers to hang it on. These ones usually work well. And yeah, we'll get it hanging and show you what it looks like. I'm actually quite excited because I actually haven't really seen it fully out after finishing the quilting, so I'm just as intrigued as you are. Ta-da! Oh, she's so colourful. I love it. I think here you can also kind of just see how big it is. I don't often make a quilt that sort of goes to the floor like that, so I'm very happy with that. Let's get a bit closer. Oh, nice. It is pulling a little bit up the top because it's so heavy, but it's all good. That looks really nice. I'm very happy with that. And what side did I put the label on? The label is here on this side. Lovely. Hello. I'm going to get my phone out and we're going to take some photos for the Insta so I can show the world my beautiful quilt, and I think I might wrap the vlog up there. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed watching the process of me finishing this delightful quilt. It has been a while, but I always get there. I always finish these things and I am so happy with it. Don't know what I'm going to do with it. It might end up being a new like lounge quilt that I cozy up underneath. I think I need to retire my Jacob's Ladder quilt because I love that one too much and I don't want it to like wear out, you know? I hope to see you all again very, very soon. I will do a couple more vlogs during November before Vlogmas starts on the 1st of December. So until then, I hope you're all having a lovely day and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye!